Grace and the Magic Tree. Grace was a young girl who lived in a small village at the foot of a mountain. Although her village was beautiful, Grace's life was filled with misfortune. Since she was little, she always felt different from the other children. It all started during the first harvest season after her birth. The rice and vegetable crops in the village failed to grow, and the villagers began to believe that the failure was due to Grace's birth. They saw her as a bringer of bad luck. Whenever she was near, the weather would turn cloudy, or storms would come, and the crops would wither. The villagers didn't hesitate to blame Grace for every misfortune that befell them. When Grace played with her friends, they would avoid her and say, "Stay away from her. She brings bad luck." Even their parents warned them not to get close to Grace, whom they believed to be the cause of their troubles. Because of this treatment, Grace grew into a quiet child, hiding her sadness and confusion inside. Every time she tried to help or offer something kind, like sharing food or water, people would either ignore her or mock her. All of this made Grace feel alienated, but she never gave up on trying to be good. The village became increasingly troubled due to consecutive failed harvests. A drought hit, and the crops never provided enough to feed everyone. Even the livestock started to suffer from a lack of food. The worsening situation made Grace feel lonelier than ever. Yet, despite being ostracized and thought of as the bringer of misfortune, Grace never wished harm upon anyone. She continued to help her parents and searched for ways to survive, even when life seemed so difficult. One bright morning, Grace decided to go gather firewood in the forest on the edge of the village. As she walked along a narrow path, Grace reflected on her difficult life. Her heart was full of sadness, but she continued to walk with determination, trying not to let the world defeat her. When she reached the forest, she found a place she had never visited before, a clearing with towering trees. In the middle of the area, there was a large tree that seemed almost dead. The tree looked withered, with dry branches and yellowing leaves. Its roots were exposed, as though it could no longer absorb water from the ground. Grace felt pity for the tree. "This tree seems to need help," she muttered, though she knew it was almost dead. She felt compelled to take care of it. Without a second thought, Grace began to dig around the tree's roots to make room for water, and then poured water from her bag around the tree. Every day, Grace returned to the tree to give it water and fertilizer that she brought. Although she knew the tree was almost beyond saving, she felt there was no harm in trying. The villagers who saw Grace's actions often mocked her. "What are you doing? That tree is dead. It's just a waste of time," they shouted. But Grace didn't care about their mockery. She felt she was doing the right thing. A few days later, a miracle started to happen. The tree's withered leaves began to turn green again. Its dry trunk slowly became stronger. Grace was amazed but happy to see the tree coming back to life. She continued to care for it regularly, even as the villagers' mocking grew louder. Unbeknownst to her, the tree that seemed to be dying was no ordinary tree. It was a magic tree that could grant one wish to anyone who cared for it sincerely. Suddenly, a soft, deep voice came from the direction of the tree. "Grace, you have cared for me with patience and kindness. As a reward, I will grant you one wish. What do you desire, kind-hearted child?" Grace was startled and took a few steps back. She didn't expect the tree she had cared for to be a magic tree that could grant wishes. She began to think hard. She had so many wishes, but they all paused because she felt confused. She could ask for anything, abundant food for herself or even wealth to free herself from hardship. Grace also knew she could ask for the village to starve, or even for them to experience the same suffering she had gone through. But deep down, Grace knew that hatred would not bring peace. She wanted to be a good person, one who could bring goodness to everyone, even if they didn't always appreciate it. Her sincere kindness prevented her from being overtaken by anger. Finally, Grace decided to make a noble wish. She felt that even though the villagers had not treated her well, they were still human beings who deserved help, especially in such hard times. "I ask the magic tree," Grace said with a confident voice, "please grant a bountiful harvest for the entire village, so that no one will go hungry again." The magic tree was silent for a moment, then gently spoke, "Your wish has been granted, Grace. May this village learn to share and appreciate one another. Because of your kind heart, this village will receive abundant blessings." After the tree's words, a miracle began to unfold. Suddenly, heavy rain poured down. On the other side, some villagers who had been watching the scene from behind the bushes ran towards the fields with wide smiles, not believing what they saw. The miracle was real, and it was all thanks to Grace's kindness. The next day, all the fields in the village, which had been dry and barren, were now filled with thriving plants. The rice that had once wilted now grew quickly. The fruit orchards that were once empty were now full of heavy fruits. The farmers, who had once worried about another failed harvest, now saw an incredible result. A few days after the bountiful harvest, the villagers began to realize the goodness Grace had done. Those who had once mocked and avoided her now felt ashamed of their behavior. One morning, the village leader and several villagers who felt guilty approached Grace with deep regret. "Grace," said the village leader softly, "we apologize for the unfair treatment we gave you. We were wrong in judging you. We believed our hardships were because of you, but now we know that your kind heart has saved us. Thank you for giving us this blessing." Other villagers also approached Grace, one by one, to apologize and thank her. "We are so sorry," they said. "We didn't know how big your heart was. We will appreciate you from now on." Grace just smiled and gently replied, "I don't expect anything in return. We should help each other, especially in difficult times like this." With deep gratitude, the villagers began to care for Grace and welcomed her with love. They learned to appreciate and share with one another, and the village became more prosperous and peaceful, all thanks to the kind heart of a girl who never stopped hoping to make the world a better place. Moral of the story: a sincere kind heart, even when often unappreciated, will always bring positive change and blessings to others. The moral of the story of Grace and the magic tree teaches us about the power of kindness, sincerity, and selflessness in the face of injustice. In this story, Grace, although seen as a bringer of bad luck by her village, never gave up on doing good. She continued to care for a dying tree despite the mockery and ridicule she received. Grace chose not to retaliate with evil but to continue doing good without expecting anything in return. Her kindness was evident in how she cared for the tree with patience. The tree, almost dead and considered beyond saving, received sincere care from her. This action shows that kindness doesn't depend on how others view us. Even though the villagers didn't see it, and even thought she was the cause of their misfortune, Grace still chose to do good. When the tree started to come back to life and granted her one wish, she had the opportunity to use the magic for her own benefit or for the benefit of the village that had wronged her. Here, a deeper moral value emerged. Grace chose to ask for a bountiful harvest for the entire village, even for those who had neglected her. Her choice shows that she was not consumed by hatred or bitterness. She preferred to share blessings with others, even if they had never appreciated her. By prioritizing the welfare of others, Grace not only brought positive change to their lives but also found happiness and peace within herself. The villagers, who once shunned her, now realized how big her heart was and eventually apologized for their mistreatment. They felt ashamed and thanked Grace because her kindness had saved them from hunger. This story teaches us that even though the world may not always recognize our good deeds, a sincere, kind heart will always have a positive impact in the end. Despite the many reasons to hate or seek revenge, forgiving and doing good brings peace to our hearts and has a positive effect on the world around us. Grace showed that kindness not only changes others but also transforms us, making us wiser, happier, and more peaceful. Additionally, the story reminds us that every small good deed, even if unappreciated, has the potential to grow into something bigger. Kindness can create miracles and bring unexpected blessings, both for ourselves and for others. Therefore, we should continue to do good, even if it is not always appreciated or understood by others. In the end, true kindness always leads to positive change and brings true happiness, both for ourselves and the world around us. That is the story and moral of Grace and the Magic Tree.